Dad, you can't go to the party alone. My hand froze on the freezer handle. I turned slowly, finding both my 6-year-old twins, Benny and Elliot, standing with their arms crossed, wearing expressions far too serious for their age. They looked like tiny executives about to deliver bad news in a boardroom. Alone? I set the ice tray back down and faced them fully. I always go alone. Why is this suddenly a problem? Benny took a deep breath, as if preparing to deliver a rehearsed speech. Because you look sad sometimes. We've been talking, and we think you need a date, Elliot interrupted, his tone matter of fact, like he was announcing what we were having for dinner. My breath caught. A what? What did you just say? Benny grabbed his tablet from the sofa, holding it up like evidence in court. We already set everything up. We found someone, sent messages, and he's coming to meet you. My heart slammed against my ribs. Who's coming? Benny. Elliot, what did you do? Elliot looked up at me with those big blue eyes, completely guilt-free. Uncle Dave. He'll be at the party tonight. We gave him the address and everything. I stood there, completely frozen. Dave. I'd never heard that name before in my life. And my 6-year-old sons had just invited a complete stranger to meet me on what was apparently supposed to be a blind date without asking me first. Boys, my voice came out low and controlled. But inside I was anything but calm. You invited a stranger to a party where I'll be? Are you serious right now? Benny immediately jumped to defend their decision. He's not a stranger, Dad. He's Aunt Mira's best friend. She told us he's really nice. Mira, my best friend. So this wasn't just their plan, she was in on it too. I reached for my phone, gripping it tightly, ready to call Mira and demand an explanation. But Elliot caught my hand, holding it gently. Dad, please trust us. We just want you to be happy. The tenderness in his voice dissolved my anger instantly. These two boys had never known their mother. She'd left after the divorce, moved back to India, and never returned. I'd raised them alone since they were infants, and now they were trying in their own misguided way to make sure I wasn't lonely. But this wasn't the right way to do it. Fine, I said, finally, exhaling hard. But if this Dave person turns out to be weird or shady, your tablet is gone for good. Benny grinned. Deal. 2 hours later, I sat in my car outside the venue, staring at the party invitation in my hand. My mind wasn't on the event itself. It was on someone named Dave, a man I'd never met but who was now officially my date for the evening. This whole situation was absurd. But when I finally stepped through the entrance and scanned the room, my eyes landed on someone standing near the corner. He was tall, with a sharp jawline, dark eyes, and wearing a casual blazer that somehow looked effortless. His posture radiated quiet confidence, and he was looking directly at me. Then he smiled. My breath caught again. You must be the guy with the matchmaking twins. I blinked, my brain scrambling to catch up. This was him. This was Dave. Excuse me? I turned fully toward him, my heart beat uncomfortably loud in my ears. His smile widened, but it wasn't mocking or teasing. It was calm, warm, and slightly amused. Benny and Elliot, they sent me your picture, along with a very detailed list of your likes and dislikes. Apparently you hate small talk and love old jazz music. I was rooted to the spot. This was really happening. My twins had set me up, and this man Dave had actually shown up. I'm so sorry, I started, but he raised a hand to stop me. Don't be. It's actually kind of adorable. There was no sarcasm in his voice. Your boys are pretty persuasive. Mira had already mentioned you, but when they reached out, he paused, his smile softening. Let's just say I couldn't refuse. I studied him carefully. He was tall, composed, and respectful. There was no creepy vibe, no red flags. Actually, the opposite. He seemed safe. Well, I hope they also told you I don't do dates, I said, a bit defensively. They did. In fact, they made it very clear you've been avoiding romantic involvement for years. Dave leaned casually against the wall, folding his arms. That's why I'm not calling this a date. My eyebrows lifted. Then what is it? Let's call it reconnaissance, he said with a grin. Your twins put in a lot of effort. The least we can do is talk for a bit. After that, if you think this was a waste of time, no hard feelings. No pressure. His approach caught me off guard. He wasn't pushy, wasn't desperate, and surprisingly, he seemed genuine. I felt myself relax slightly, though my guard was still up. Fine. Reconnaissance, I said, picking up a glass of water from a nearby tray. But just for an hour. Then I'm leaving. Deal. Dave grabbed his own drink and lightly tapped it against my glass. Cheers to matchmaking 6-year-olds. We both smiled awkwardly. Over the next few minutes, to my surprise, the conversation flowed naturally. Dave told me about his work. He was an architect who specialized in modern, sustainable building designs. He'd been friends with Mira since college and had recently gone through a divorce. No kids. No baggage, just trying to rebuild his life. Same here, I said softly, staring into my glass. I figured, Dave replied. His tone wasn't pitying. It was just understanding. The moment felt oddly comforting. I'd expected awkwardness, forced conversation, and discomfort. But there was none of that. Talking to Dave was surprisingly easy. We eventually moved away from the crowded room to the terrace, where it was quieter and the cool evening breeze felt refreshing. The city lights twinkled below us, and for a brief moment, everything felt still. Your twins are very protective of you, Dave said, gazing out at the skyline. Yeah, I replied with a smile. Sometimes a little too much. They just want you to be happy, he said, turning to look at me. That's rare. You've done a great job with them. My chest tightened. Sometimes compliments hurt, especially when you don't believe you deserve them. I just try my best, I whispered. That's enough, Dave said quietly. A comfortable silence settled between us. It wasn't awkward or heavy. It was calm, steady, something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Benny. Dad, do you like him? Yes or no? Reply fast. I shook my head and showed Dave the screen. Look. Real-time monitoring. Dave laughed out loud. They're serious about this. Too serious, I muttered. But when I looked at Dave again, his easy smile, his warmth, the simplicity of this moment, I couldn't deny it. Maybe my twins weren't wrong this time. Maybe spending time with Dave wasn't such a bad thing. And as we left the party together and walked toward the parking lot, my chest felt a little lighter. For the first time in years, the idea of being with someone didn't terrify me. Actually, it felt kind of nice. Dad didn't reply. Elliot's face was full of genuine concern as he looked at Benny. We'd just gotten home, and I was taking off my jacket when I realized both of my little detectives were sitting on the couch, staring at me expectantly. Boys, it's bedtime, I said firmly, hoping to avoid an interrogation. No way, Benny said bluntly. First, tell us, how was Uncle Dave? I hung my jacket on the rack and turned slowly. He was fine. Fine? Just fine? Elliot sounded disappointed. Dad, you're supposed to be more excited than that. I couldn't help but chuckle. Elliot, when I was your age, I was watching cartoons. Now you're giving me relationship advice? Because you need it, Benny muttered under his breath. I walked over and ruffled both their heads. Affectionately. Okay, detectives. Yes, Dave was nice. He was respectful, mature, and yes, I talked to him. Are you happy now? Both their eyes lit up. Does that mean you'll see him again? Elliot asked eagerly. I paused. Honestly, I didn't know. Dave seemed great, sure. But was I ready for this? That was a completely different question. We'll see, I said diplomatically. Benny sighed in disappointment but didn't push further. Fine, but if he texts you, please don't ignore him. Deal. I finally sent them to bed, and when I got to my room, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Multiple texts from Mira. So? How was it? Dave said you guys talked. He sounded really happy. You better not ghost him. I set my phone aside and collapsed onto my bed. Honestly, I was exhausted emotionally. Spending time with Dave had been unexpectedly nice. But opening up again, trusting someone again, that scared me more than I wanted to admit. The next morning, I was in my usual routine, making breakfast for the twins, when the doorbell rang. I opened the door cautiously, and there stood Dave. He was dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, holding a coffee tray in his hands. Morning, he said with a smile. Benny texted me your address. I hope that's okay. I was momentarily speechless. He gave you my address? Yup, along with very specific instructions that you need coffee in the morning and don't like it too sweet. Dave held the tray out. So medium roast, no sugar, just the way you like it. My heart did something weird in my chest. I took the coffee and opened the door wider. You just showed up? Technically your twins invited me, Dave said with a grin. But yeah, I wanted to see you again. I didn't know what to say. Dave was straightforward and honest. No games, no pretense. It was unsettling and refreshing at the same time. Come in, I said finally. But fair warning, the twins are going to interrogate you. Bring it on, Dave said confidently as he stepped inside. The moment Benny and Elliot saw Dave, their excitement exploded. They ran straight to him. Uncle Dave, you came. Did Dad say yes to another date? Dave glanced at me with a laugh. That depends. Did he? I scratched the back of my neck awkwardly. I didn't say no. That's progress, Dave said softly, his gaze lingering on me. It was gentle, patient. Benny and Elliot immediately activated their master plan, dragging Dave to the breakfast table and bombarding him with questions. He shared everything: his favorite superhero, his favorite food, his favorite color. He talked to them so naturally, like he'd known them forever. I stood back, quietly observing. Dave wasn't loud or pushy. He was just present, fully there. And for the first time in years, I thought maybe letting someone in wouldn't be so terrible. Later, as Dave was about to leave, he stopped at the door. No pressure, but if you ever want to grab coffee or just talk, I'm here. I nodded. Thanks, Dave. Anytime. He turned to go, then paused. Oh, and your twins are really smart. They deserve to see their dad happy too. That line hit me right in the chest. Dave left, but his presence stayed with me. I stood in the kitchen, holding my coffee cup, and for the first time in years I thought maybe this wasn't so bad. Maybe Dave really was different. And maybe I could try again. Over the next few days, Dave and I started texting regularly. Nothing serious, just small check-ins, occasional jokes, and random thoughts. He'd send me articles about architecture and I'd share songs I thought he'd like. It was easy, comfortable. One evening my phone buzzed with a new message from him. Free tonight. There's a jazz lounge I think you'd really enjoy. No pressure, just thought of you. I stared at the screen for a long moment. The jazz lounge. He'd remembered my love for jazz music. It was such a small detail, but he'd paid attention. Did Uncle Dave text you? Benny's curious face appeared next to me. Yeah, I said casually. He's asking if I want to go out tonight. Elliot clapped his hands excitedly. Then go, Dad. Please. I gave them a hesitant smile. You two really think I should say yes every time, don't you? Yes, they both said in unison. I sighed and finally typed out a reply. Okay, but just for a little while. Dave's response came instantly. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. That evening when Dave arrived, he looked effortlessly put together in a simple shirt and dark jeans. But this time, when I got into his car, something felt different between us. We were both more comfortable, less guarded. The jazz lounge was dimly lit and intimate, with soft piano music playing in the background. We sat in a corner booth, and Dave leaned forward slightly, his eyes focused on me. So, he started gently. Have you ever wondered why your twins are so invested in your love life? I thought about it for a moment. Because they've never known their mother. They don't want me to be alone. And what do you want? Dave asked, his gaze steady and non-judgmental. I turned my glass slowly in my hands. I want them to be happy, safe, loved. And what about yourself? He pressed gently. I stopped. That was a question I'd never honestly asked myself. What did I want for me? Safety? Peace? Companionship? I don't know, I whispered. I haven't thought about it in a long time. Dave nodded slowly. I get it. After my divorce, I went through the same thing. I kept telling myself I was better off alone. But eventually I realized something. What? I asked. Being alone and being lonely are two very different things, Dave said softly. He rested his hand on the table near mine, close but not touching. And maybe you and your boys deserve someone who wants to share your life. Not to fix anything, just to be there. My throat tightened. There was no neediness in Dave's voice, just honesty, vulnerability. I'm scared, I admitted, barely audible. Of what? Of letting someone in, and then losing them. Dave looked at me steadily. Not everyone leaves. His words settled deep inside me. Dad looks different. Benny made the observation while we were eating pancakes the next morning. I paused mid-flip, looking at him in confusion. Different, happier, Elliot added, sipping his juice. You're smiling more. Like, really smiling. I didn't respond right away because honestly they were right. Over the past couple of weeks, something had shifted inside me. Dave's messages, his unexpected visits, our late-night phone calls. It all felt natural, easy, like something I didn't know I'd been missing, and that terrified me. My phone buzzed on the counter. Another message from Dave. Morning, how are the detectives today? I smiled despite myself and typed back, conducting their daily investigation. As usual. His reply came quickly. Tell them I missed them. And you. My chest tightened. 3 simple words, and you. But they carried weight I wasn't sure I was ready for. Was that Uncle Dave? Benny asked, leaning over to peek at my phone. Maybe, I said, slipping it into my pocket. You should invite him over for dinner, Elliot suggested brightly. We can make spaghetti. I looked at both of them, these 2 small humans who'd taken it upon themselves to fix my love life. They meant well. They always did. But inviting Dave over for dinner felt like crossing a line I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. We'll see, I said non-committally. But Benny wasn't letting it go. Dad, you like him. We can tell. So why are you being weird about it? Kids. They saw right through everything. I'm not being weird, I said defensively. I'm just being careful. Careful is boring, Benny declared. Uncle Dave is nice. He makes you smile. And he brings you coffee. What more do you need? I couldn't help but laugh. It's a little more complicated than coffee, buddy. No, it's not, Elliot said simply. You're just scared. Out of the mouths of babes. That afternoon I finally gave in and texted Dave. Want to come over for dinner tonight? The boys are insisting. His response was immediate. I'd love to. What time? 6? Perfect. I'll bring dessert. When 6 o'clock rolled around, I was more nervous than I wanted to admit. The twins had helped me set the table, and Elliot had insisted on folding the napkins into fancy shapes he'd seen on a YouTube video. Benny kept checking the door every 5 minutes. Then the doorbell rang. Benny and Elliot raced to answer it, flinging the door open to reveal Dave standing there with a bakery box in his hands and that same easy smile on his face. Evening, gentlemen, he said, crouching down to their level. I heard someone requested my presence. We did. Elliot practically shouted. Come in. Dad made spaghetti. Dave stepped inside, his eyes finding mine across the room. Hey. Hey. I replied, suddenly very aware of how domestic this all felt. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. The twins dominated the conversation, telling Dave about their school projects, their favorite games, and approximately 100 other random things. Dave listened attentively, asking questions and laughing at their jokes. He fit so naturally into our little world that it almost hurt to watch. After the boys went to bed, Dave and I sat on the couch with glasses of wine. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the dishwasher in the kitchen. Thank you for tonight, Dave said softly. This was really nice. The boys love you, I said, staring into my glass. And what about their dad? Dave asked, his tone careful but direct. I looked up at him. His eyes were warm, patient, waiting for an answer I wasn't sure I knew how to give. I'm still figuring that out, I admitted. That's fair, Dave said. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. But what if he did? What if I let him all the way in and then he decided this life, me, the twins, all of it, was too much? What if you change your mind? I asked quietly. Dave set his glass down and turned to face me fully. About what? About this. About us. What if you wake up one day and realize you don't want to deal with a single dad and 2 6-year-olds who think they're matchmakers? Dave reached out and gently took my hand. Then I'd be an idiot, he said simply. Because I already know what I want. I've known since the night we met. My heart was pounding. Dave? I know you're scared, he continued. And I'm not asking you to stop being scared. I'm just asking you to let me prove that I'm not going anywhere. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. When was the last time someone had fought for me like this? When was the last time someone had seen my fear and chosen to stay anyway? Okay, I whispered. Okay? Dave's eyes searched mine. Okay. I repeated, a little stronger this time. Let's try this. Really try. Dave's smile was soft and genuine. Yeah? Yeah. He squeezed my hand gently. And for the first time in years I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could do this. I could let someone in. I could trust again. And maybe, just maybe, it would actually work out. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Dave became a regular presence in our lives, joining us for weekend breakfasts, helping the twins with their homework, even fixing the leaky faucet in the kitchen that I'd been putting off for months. He didn't try to replace their mother or force his way into our family. He just... One evening after the boys had gone to bed, Dave and I were sitting on the back porch, watching the stars. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. Always. Why me? Why take a chance on someone who's clearly a mess? Dave turned to look at me, his expression serious. You're not a mess. You're a person who's been through hard things and came out stronger. You're a great dad. You're kind. You're thoughtful. And yeah, you're cautious, but that just means you care. Those aren't flaws. They're reasons I'm here. I didn't know what to say, so instead I leaned over and kissed him. It was soft and tentative and terrifying and perfect all at once. When we pulled apart, Dave was smiling. Took you long enough, he teased gently. I laughed, my forehead resting against his. Shut up. Never, he whispered, and kissed me again. And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet of the night and the warmth of someone who actually cared, I realized something important. My twins had been right all along. Dad's smiling differently now. I paused mid-flip with the spatula, pancake batter sizzling on the griddle. Elliot's observation came out of nowhere, catching me completely off guard during our Saturday morning breakfast routine. What do you mean differently? I asked, sliding the finished pancake onto a plate. Benny looked up from his orange juice. You used to smile with just your mouth. Now your whole face does it. It's nicer. I stood there, spatula in hand, unsure how to respond. Because they were absolutely right. Something had shifted in me over the past few weeks. Dave's presence in our lives had become constant. Morning texts that made me laugh. Surprise lunch deliveries when he knew I was swamped with work. Evening phone calls that stretched past midnight. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm that felt both exciting and terrifying. My phone vibrated on the counter. Another message from Dave. Any chance you're free tonight? Found this incredible jazz lounge downtown. Thought you might enjoy checking it out with me. I stared at the screen, my heart doing that strange flutter thing it seemed to do whenever his name appeared. A jazz lounge. He'd actually remembered our conversation from weeks ago about my love for live music. It was the small details like this that kept catching me off guard. The way he paid attention, the way he cared. Is that Uncle Dave? Benny leaned over, trying to peek at my screen. Maybe, I said, pulling the phone closer. You should definitely go, Elliot chimed in, bouncing slightly in his chair. You always say yes to work stuff but never to fun stuff. I raised an eyebrow. Since when did you two become experts on my social calendar? Since we noticed you actually look forward to seeing him, Benny said matter-of-factly. Your face lights up when he texts. It's kind of obvious, Dad. Out of the mouths of children. They saw everything I was trying to hide, even from myself. I typed out a response, hesitating only slightly before hitting send. Sounds perfect. What time should I be ready? Dave's reply came almost instantly. 7. I'll pick you up. When evening arrived, I found myself standing in front of my closet longer than usual, second-guessing every shirt I owned. It was ridiculous. I was a grown man acting like a teenager before prom, but there was something about Dave that made me want to try. To be present. To show up as my best self. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. I opened it to find Dave standing there in a charcoal gray sweater and dark jeans, looking effortlessly put together. His smile when he saw me was warm and genuine. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be, I replied, grabbing my jacket. The drive downtown was comfortable, filled with easy conversation about our respective weeks. Dave told me about a challenging client who kept changing their mind about building designs. And I shared a funny story about Benny accidentally dyeing Elliot's hair blue with food coloring during an unsupervised art project. The jazz lounge was everything I didn't know I needed. Dim amber lighting cast warm shadows across exposed brick walls. and the intimate space hummed with soft conversation beneath the live piano music. We found a small table near the back, away from the crowd but close enough to feel the music's vibration. "This place is incredible," I said, taking in the atmosphere. "How did you find it?" I asked Mira for recommendations, Dave admitted, settling into his chair. "I wanted to find somewhere you'd actually enjoy, not just tolerate for my sake." That simple statement hit me harder than it should have. How many people in my life actually considered what I wanted? Most assumed I was fine with whatever, that my needs came secondary to everyone else's. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for thinking of me." "Always," Dave replied, his eyes holding mine for a beat longer than necessary. The music shifted to a slower, more soulful melody. Dave leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "Can I ask you something personal?" he ventured carefully. "Depends on the question," I said, taking a sip of my drink. "Why did your marriage end?" "You don't have to answer if..." "She wanted a different life," I interrupted, surprised by my own willingness to share. "We got married young, had the twins almost immediately. I think she felt trapped. When they were 2, she told me she needed to find herself. Whatever that meant. She moved back to India and we haven't heard from her since." Dave's expression shifted to something between sympathy and anger. "She just left? Completely? Birthdays, holidays, everything. She sends money occasionally, which I put in accounts for the boys, but otherwise..." I shook my head. "It's like we never existed." "That's why they worry about you being alone," Dave said softly. "They don't want you to feel abandoned too." The accuracy of his observation made my chest tighten. I've tried so hard to be enough for them, to make sure they don't feel the absence of a mother. But some days I wonder if I'm just failing in slow motion. Dave reached across the table, his hand covering mine. It was the first time he'd initiated physical contact beyond casual touches, and the warmth of his palm against my skin sent electricity through my entire body. "You're not failing," he said firmly. "Those boys are happy, healthy, and clearly loved beyond measure. You've given them everything that matters. And for what it's worth, I think you're doing an incredible job." I blinked rapidly, fighting back the emotion threatening to spill over. "Why are you so patient with me? I'm clearly a mess with more baggage than an airport terminal." Dave's thumb traced small circles on my hand. "Want to know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" I whispered. "Someone who's been through hell but came out stronger. Someone who puts everyone else first, but deserves to be someone's priority. Someone who's scared to trust again, but brave enough to try anyway." He paused, his gaze intense. "That's not a mess. That's someone worth knowing." The piano music swelled around us, filling the silence where words failed. I didn't pull my hand away. Instead, I let myself sit with the vulnerability of being truly seen. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Of this. Of us. Of what happens if I let myself believe this is real and then it falls apart." "What happens if it doesn't fall apart?" Dave countered gently. "What if it works? What if this is the beginning of something good?" I didn't have an answer. Hope felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. We stayed at the lounge until closing, talking about everything and nothing. Dave told me about his childhood in Seattle, his complicated relationship with his own father, his dreams of one day designing a completely sustainable community. I found myself sharing things I hadn't told anyone. My fear of failing my children, my loneliness on quiet nights, my guilt about sometimes resenting the life I'd been left to navigate alone. When he dropped me off at home, we sat in his car for a long moment, neither wanting the evening to end. "Thank you for tonight," I said finally. "For listening. For understanding." "Thank you for letting me in," Dave replied. "I know it's not easy for you." I reached for the door handle, then hesitated. Before I could second-guess myself, I leaned over and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. "Good night, Dave." His smile was radiance. "Good night." Inside, I found Benny and Elliot supposedly asleep, but clearly wide awake when I checked on them. "How was it?" Benny whispered. "Really good," I admitted, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Are you gonna see him again?" Elliot asked hopefully. I thought about Dave's hand in mine, his words, the way he made me feel seen and valued. "Yeah," I said softly. "I think I am." "Dad, something's wrong." Benny's voice cut through my fog. I'd been staring at my laptop screen for the past 20 minutes without actually seeing anything. The email from Dave sat open in my browser, each word feeling like a small knife. I need to talk to you about something important. Can I call tonight? That message had arrived this morning, followed by radio silence despite my 3 attempts to reach him. My mind had spiraled through every possible scenario, each worse than the last. I'm fine, buddy, I lied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Elliot appeared next to his brother, both wearing matching concerned expressions. You've been staring at your computer without moving for forever. Is Uncle Dave okay? Benny asked directly. Did you guys have a fight? Kids were terrifyingly perceptive. No fight, I assured them. He just said he needed to discuss something. I'm sure it's nothing serious, but it felt serious. Everything about Dave's cryptic message felt heavy with unspoken weight. When my phone finally rang that evening after the boys were in bed, I nearly dropped it in my rush to answer. Hey, Dave's voice came through, sounding strained. Sorry I've been MIA today. It's been complicated. What's going on? I asked, my stomach already knotting with dread. I got offered a project. It's huge, a complete sustainable housing development in Singapore. The kind of opportunity that comes once in a career. He paused and I heard him exhale slowly. It's a 6-month commitment minimum. Possibly longer depending on how the design phase goes. 6 months. The words echoed in my head, bouncing around like shrapnel. 6 months of him being halfway across the world. 6 months of the boys asking when he's coming back. 6 months of me trying not to fall apart while pretending everything was fine. That's amazing, Dave, I managed, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. Congratulations. I haven't accepted yet, he said quickly. That's why I'm calling. I needed to talk to you first before making any decisions. Why? The question came out sharper than intended. This is your career, your dream project. You shouldn't base that decision on what? On us? Dave interrupted. Because that's exactly what I want to base it on. You and Benny and Elliot. You've become the most important part of my life. I'm not making a decision this big without considering how it affects all of you. I stood up and walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. The street below was quiet, lampposts casting yellow circles of light onto empty pavement. I can't be the reason you turn down your dream job, I said firmly. I won't be that person. 5 years from now you'll resent me for it. Or 5 years from now I'll regret choosing a building over the family I could have had, Dave countered. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm choosing you. I want to choose you. Tears burned behind my eyes. This is crazy. We've only been doing this for a few months. You can't put your entire career on hold for something that might not even what? Work out? Last? Dave's voice softened. I know you're scared. I know trusting me feels impossible after what you've been through. But I need you to hear me clearly. I'm not her. I'm not going to wake up one day and decide this is too hard. I'm all in. The question is whether you can let yourself believe that. I pressed my palm flat against the window, watching my breath fog the glass. What if I tell you to take it? What if I say we can handle 6 months? Silence stretched between us. Then I'd take it, Dave said finally. But I need to know you're not just saying that because you're pushing me away. I need to know you'll actually be here when I get back. Of course I'll be here, I said, my voice cracking slightly. Where else would I go? Emotionally here, Dave clarified gently. Not just physically present but actually willing to let this relationship continue. Because if 6 months apart means you'll rebuild all those walls I've been watching you slowly take down, then the project isn't worth it. I turned away from the window and sank onto the couch. Suddenly exhausted. I don't want to hold you back. That's not fair to either of us. Life isn't about fair, Dave said. It's about choices. And I'm choosing to put you first. But I can't do this alone. I need to know you're choosing me too. The weight of his words settled over me like a blanket. He was asking me to be brave, to trust, to believe that sometimes people actually stay. It went against every self-preservation instinct I'd developed over the past 4 years. The boys will be devastated, I said quietly. I'll video call every day. I'll send them drawings and postcards. I'll make sure they know I'm thinking about them constantly. Dave's determination was evident even through the phone. And I'll come back. That's a promise. This isn't goodbye, it's just temporary distance. 6 months, I repeated, testing the words. 6 months. And then I'm back, and we figure out what comes next. Together, I closed my eyes, thinking about Benny and Elliot sleeping peacefully down the hall. They adored Dave. He'd become woven into the fabric of our daily lives so seamlessly that his absence would leave a gaping hole. But they'd also taught me something important through all of this. Sometimes taking risks on people was worth it. Okay, I whispered. Okay? Dave's voice lifted with hope. Take the job, go to Singapore, build something incredible. I took a shaky breath. But you better keep that promise about coming back. Because if you don't, I'm sending 2 very determined 6-year-olds to track you down. Dave's laugh was wet, like he'd been crying too. I promise. God. I promise. I'll count down every single day until I can hold you again. When do you leave? 2 weeks. They need me to start the initial planning phase as soon as possible. 2 weeks. 14 days to prepare myself and my sons for his absence. It felt simultaneously like too much time and nowhere near enough. We should tell the boys together, I suggested. They'll take it better coming from both of us. Tomorrow? I can come over for breakfast. Tomorrow works. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my living room for a long time, processing everything. Dave was leaving, but he was also coming back. He'd chosen me, chosen us, even knowing all my broken pieces and sharp edges. For the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I deserved something good. Dad, the board says his plane landed 10 minutes ago. Benny pressed his face against the glass partition separating us from the international arrivals area, his breath fogging the surface. Elliot bounced on his toes beside him, clutching the welcome home sign they'd spent 3 hours making yesterday, complete with glitter, stickers, and a drawing of our family that included a stick figure labeled Uncle Dave. 6 months. 183 days to be precise. I'd counted every single one. The time had been harder than I'd imagined. Video calls helped, but they couldn't replace Dave's physical presence. The boys struggled with his absence, asking constantly when he'd return. I'd struggled too, fighting the old familiar voice that whispered this proved people always leave. Eventually. But Dave had kept his word. Daily video calls, sometimes twice a day. Packages arrived regularly. Sketchbooks for the boys, coffee from Singapore's best roasters for me. Handwritten letters describing his projects and how much he missed being home. He never once made it feel like distance meant disconnection. What if his flight was delayed? Elliot worried, tugging on my sleeve. What if he can't find us? He'll find us, I assured him, though my own heart was racing. He always does. The arrivals door slid open, and passengers began streaming through. Business travelers in wrinkled suits, families reuniting with tears and laughter, college students hauling oversized backpacks. My eyes scanned each face, searching. Then I saw him. Dave emerged, looking exhausted. His hair slightly longer than when he'd left, his carry-on slung over one shoulder. But when his gaze found us in the crowd, his entire face transformed. That smile, the one I'd seen only through screens for half a year, was finally real and right in front of me. Uncle Dave. Both boys screamed simultaneously, abandoning all airport etiquette as they ran toward him. Dave dropped his bag and crouched just in time to catch them both, wrapping his arms around their small bodies and lifting them slightly off the ground. I missed you guys so much. So incredibly much. I hung back, suddenly frozen. Seeing him through a screen and seeing him here, solid and real, were completely different experiences. My heart felt too big for my chest. Dave set the boys down and stood, his eyes meeting mine across the space between us. Neither of us moved for a long moment, just drinking each other in. Hi, I said stupidly, my voice barely working. Hi yourself, he replied, walking toward me slowly, like he was afraid I might disappear if he moved too fast. Then he was there, right in front of me, close enough to touch. You waited, he said softly. Of course I waited, I whispered back. I promised. Dave cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across my cheekbones. Can I kiss you? Right here, in front of everyone? I couldn't speak, so I just nodded. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative after months of separation, but then it deepened, 6 months of missing each other pouring into this single moment. His hand slid into my hair and mine gripped the fabric of his jacket, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, Benny was making exaggerated gagging sounds while Elliot giggled. "Gross, Dad," Benny declared, though he was grinning. "Very gross," Elliot agreed happily. Dave laughed, slinging an arm around my shoulders and pulling me against his side. "Come on, let's get out of here. I'm desperate for real food and even more desperate to be home." The word home sent warmth flooding through me. The drive back was filled with the boys' chatter, telling Dave about everything he'd missed, asking about Singapore, demanding to know if he'd brought them presents. He had an entire suitcase worth. Dave kept one hand on my knee the entire time, like he needed the physical reminder that this was real. When we pulled into the driveway, Dave stared at the house for a long moment before turning to me. "I thought about this moment every single day, coming back here, being with all of you again." "It's just a house," I said quietly. "No," Dave corrected, unbuckling his seatbelt. "It's home. Because you're here." Inside, chaos erupted as the boys dragged Dave to see their school projects, new toys and the growth chart on the kitchen wall documenting how much taller they'd gotten. Dave admired everything with genuine enthusiasm, asking questions and offering praise. Eventually, after the boys were finally asleep, well past their bedtime because Dave had been reading them stories, we sat together on the back porch, the night air cool against our skin. So Dave began, lacing his fingers through mine. "I have something to tell you." My stomach dropped. "What?" "They offered me a permanent position, leading the entire Asia-Pacific design division from their Singapore office." He paused, watching my reaction carefully. "Incredible salary, full relocation package, everything I could want professionally." I pulled my hand away, standing abruptly. "You're leaving again." "No," Dave said firmly, standing to and catching my wrist. I turned it down. I stared at him. "What?" "I turned it down," he repeated, "because what I want professionally doesn't matter if I'm miserable personally. And I would be miserable without you. Without Benny and Elliot. Without the—" "But that's insane." "No, what's insane is building a career halfway around the world from the people I love." Dave pulled me closer. "I already found a firm here that's interested in bringing me on. Same kind of sustainable design work, just local. I can be home every night. I can be here for soccer games and school plays and lazy Sunday mornings. I can be the partner you deserve and the father figure those boys need." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "You can't just uproot your entire life for us." "Watch me," Dave said simply. "Because this right here with you, this is the life I want. Not some prestigious title in a foreign country. Not projects that keep me away from the people who matter. Just this. Just us." I broke completely then, sobbing against his chest while he held me tight, murmuring reassurances into my hair. "I love you," I choked out. "I'm terrified and messy and probably always will be, but I love you so much." "I love you too," Dave whispered. "All your terrified, messy parts included. And I'm staying, for good this time." Later, curled up on the couch together, Dave showed me photos from Singapore. The buildings he'd designed, the team he'd worked with, the city he'd explored. But in every story he circled back to missing home, missing us. "No more 6-month separations?" I asked sleepily. "Never again," Dave promised. "From now on, wherever you are is where I'll be." And finally, after years of guarding my heart, I let myself fully believe him.